So it's just amazing to see how many people are coming when we spread the word ICO. ICO. So I'm sure some of you have some cryptocurrencies. Who has Bitcoins? And Ether? And more than 4 or 5 tokens? Who's trading? Who has more than 100,000 euros in tokens? I was expecting everybody raising their hands. So, great, welcome to our evening tonight. We are happy to have you here. This is an evening we pulled together with partners you see here. We have the Blockchain Bundesverband, we have the Earlybird, we have the guys from Windingtree, myself, EWF, and Innovationsforum Blockchain. Then we have also later on the panel, Martin, the CEO of Endorsed, is coming and talking with us about ICO, what it means. So then it's pretty easy, so I don't have to explain you anymore about what an ICO is. Sometimes people prefer to call it token sale due to several reasons. The legal situation, which is trying to catch up with the evolution of the technology. This phenomenon has grown in amplitude over the last 2 years. It's basically the first ICO of the younger time was Ethereum, 2015. The first one was Mastercoin, 2013, and the explosion started basically 2016 and took basically the blockchain economy by storm. So what's an ICO? That's on the one hand crowdfunding mechanism, potential corporate financing tool. That's a way to bring in some needed funds into the blockchain community. And that's also what I picked up from an article in the New York Times, our generation's pension plan. Yeah. I spoke at the CeBIT and I said whoever started, and I assume you all started in a similar way, which is to start with one currency, then the second one, then the third one, and you start maybe say, I will stick to that currency, I'm loyal, I'm not a trader, I'm not a speculator, I will stick to my Bitcoins, Ether, whatever. And then you see, oh no, there's other currencies or tokens basically moving fast, and then you start switching, and then you start trading, and then you're suddenly hooked up and you're in the ecosystem. And so if you're a founder, but also if you're working for a large company, you have of course the interest in wanting to understand how you could use it for your own goals and your own targets. And this is what this evening is going to be about. The benefits for the ecosystem, the benefits for the individual company founder, but also big company. My personal opinion and expectation is going to stay. This is going to be a new financial tool which is going to be adopted by the entire industry worldwide. And it's going to disrupt also, just by the way how it attracts money and give rewards to early investors, but also innovators. It will change business model. Why? Because the ICO is only the channel to basically get money or new funds in. But the other way, so you put in some money to a project, into a coin, but that project gives you something back, which is the token. That's why some say that we moved to a token economy. Some are talking about the crypto economy, but the token economy is valid too. Token as a bearer of rights, but also value, and it has sometimes the form of a currency. And sometimes it is a so-called utility coin, like Bitcoin is a currency, Ether is a utility coin. And the mechanism behind, which are basically setting the rules how these currencies or tokens are working, written down in white papers, and basically the monetary policy, the regulating the inflation policy, the rewarding, the consensus. This is what's usually called the crypto economics. This is a very important part which was missing at the digital economy for years. Just to give you an example, you are creating a beautiful platform, but no one is showing up. And with the service, the products, the value, you are sharing and you are communicating. And because they also believe in a later reward, and this creates kind of a viral circle, which is basically pulling resources and people into these new platforms. And this is a driver behind. So the big question, of course, which we see since a while in the market, but also lately, we have now the Bitcoin at how much?
Almost 4,000.
4,000?
Euro.
Yeah, it's like 4,500.
It's 4,000.
Is it all-time high?
Yeah.
Not bad, no? Fuels a lot of money. We have now a total value of Bitcoin of billions, with a new product, decentralized currency, which is gaining with each crisis, and which is also the symbol of distrust in centralized authorities. And what's amazing is that it works. It works since it was launched. It works since 2009. It works since it's exposed to every hacker in this world. So it proved it works, and also introduced a new infrastructure, which is the blockchain, which you can use for a lot of other tools too. So the question I'm confronted very often is, if you look at it from an investing point of view, but then also from a founder point of view, so the question is, how long will this last? How long will this SEO craze last? How long will Bitcoin stay until it basically crashes? And there's a graphic I love from Eric Forrest from Shapeshift. It goes like this, and it's basically when it moves from 1,000, well, from 400 to 1,000 for the Bitcoin price, and then it crashed. You see, it crashed, and then it moves to 3,000, and it goes down again. It crashed, and then it moves just up and up and up. So, related to the ICO, we have now lately some crazy sounding evaluations of projects. Where people say, how can it be that 3 or 4 guys are just coming up with a solution? They haven't even proven themselves, or sometimes they don't even have an MVP, and the value is so incredibly high. So they are all great. This is a tulip mania. This is what the economists are saying. If you look, and that's basically the only chart of my introduction, if you look at the price of the Bitcoin, you see that basically just 2 years ago, it was at 150 euros, and it's now moving up to 4,000. And if I look at the graphic which Eric was tweaking, it's basically, I said it's a scam, it's crashed. I said it's a scam, it's crashed, and then it moves on. So when you look at the ICO and these high evaluations, you can look at it from 2 points. The startups collecting funds have collected Ether, Bitcoin, which are liquid, which can be traded on the exchange, and therefore be for their own risk management, traded back into fiat currencies, euros, Swiss franc, dollar. Because it has a price, it can be traded and sold easily, you find buyers. On the other hand, you have to take into consideration that much of the money which is now currently investing in ICOs, because that process is quite tricky. Comes from people having cryptocurrencies. So Chris Berlinske from ARK, formerly ARK Investment, Berlis from ARK Invest said at the Token Summit in May in New York that 75% of the money, the funds moving into ICOs are already existing cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin or Ether. And whether you look at the Bitcoin curve or the Ether curve, it's even more dramatic, you just need to look 2 years back, and you have between 2015, January, and today, a multiple of 26. So now let's assume you have made an ICO with a startup valued at 20 millions. The value is the price of the Bitcoin of today multiplied with the numbers of funds you have collected. But if you apply that formula, which is not scientific, but it's a number which was communicated, you can take it as it is, you would say that possibly 75% of the money you invested was actually at that price. And so it means that for the investor in the startup, they didn't invest 20 million. For them, they basically invested 25th of 20 million. So it means a very low evaluation. And if you look at the way how Bitcoin is created and how the quantity of Bitcoin is developing, you see that there are already a lot of people who basically have only a lot of Bitcoins already now today, but at very low evaluations. And they understand the business because it was successful for them. They love blockchain. You don't need to explain them how it works. They believe in it. They will go on and feed projects. The more daring, the better. And now put this in context that it's a pain to get your first Bitcoin or Ether. No? How was it with you? I mean, it took me 6 weeks to get my first Bitcoin. And I have friends who failed miserably in passing the QIC of Kraken, because you need to make the QIC, you need to have a picture taken of your passport, sending it in, and you just need to have your finger, your thumb on part of the passport, and then it bounce back. It takes them 2 weeks to bounce back, so it's a pain. So this is why I think this will also fuel further the growth of Bitcoin, and with that also of the entire crypto economy. Because actually we are here already a lot, but in total, most people just start to sometimes have heard of maybe Bitcoin. So when the masses are going to really consider investing in it, then there's just a limited supply. So this will even drive further up the ecosystem. And in that context, I don't know if Nikita is here. So yeah, Nikita, so maybe come. So just before we move on, because of that gap between the mass market not having reached, because it's difficult to access the tokens, Nikita is just working on a great project, which I'm happy to present.
Thank you very much, then. Yeah, connecting on where Sven left off.
So we just have to hide the private mailbox of Alex.
Okay, hi everybody. I'll just start out with that. A little bit of censorship going on here. Oh, we got my presentation. Thank you very much. So nice to see our house so full tonight. A couple of months ago we started off with just a couple of people, now it's so full. Thank you for coming and listening to what we got to say tonight. So connecting to where Sven basically left off, we identified 3 weak spots which ICOs have today, of which we think makes ICOs less great than they could have been already. So me being a business major, coming from a business major background, and now being an Ethereum developer, the first time when I came across ICOs, these 3 things that came immediately into my mind. You've got volatility, exclusivity, and congestion going on. So imagine this scenario. You do an ICO and you close on 340 and then you cash out on 280 and you promise your users to buy solar panels. So imagine going from here to there, that's a lot of less solar panels, basically. So everybody who ever wrote a business plan knows how tight calculations and margins can be. So these things are really crucial that you really get the money that you basically rely on. And exclusivity, it's us, everybody here, being crypto heads and owning cryptocurrencies and tokens and everything. But for example, my Facebook Messenger is full of friends asking me, oh, what's this going on? What's all up with that hype? Where can I buy this? And oh, why do they are they asking for the size of my underwear to just buy some cryptocurrency? Why can't I go and buy it at the bank and things like that? And I tell them, these things won't get better for anytime soon. So why don't we just take something everybody has already? And this is, for example, a credit card. So it's millions of wallets versus billions of credit cards. So why can't we just go ahead and say, hey, you can buy a token directly with a credit card without messing around with exchanges and everything, and thereby separate the flow of data, basically. Your money flowing into the project which you want to fund, and giving out a call to a smart contract which will basically transfer you the tokens then. And what we have seen with many ICOs prior in the last month, where the ICO hype went big, is many people crying on the internet not getting a hold of the tokens because there were the rich guys which bribed the miners with high transaction fees, and they were the first ones. And everybody basically, this is Indiana Jones, you can see me, unfortunately. Everybody is trying to get into that one block where the sale is starting, and all the poor guys then fall down. Which we just, this graphic is just a couple of minutes old. Some SEOs going on again. You see the gas limit is at 6.7 million. It's an Ethereum thing, and every block is basically full. So something is going on again, and some people are falling off the table. So why don't we just cut all the bullshit in the middle and we go just like that? You take your credit card, you give somebody your money, and a call is being sent to some smart contract sending you a token. When we were, last time when we met at Earlybird, some crypto enthusiasts laughed at me for that solution, maybe you remember. And it wasn't me laughing, because the purists of course say, hey, this is not decentralized and blah blah, but remember not long time ago we sent DVDs via mail because internet bandwidth wasn't that great yet. So maybe we just let the crypto purists aside and just do the pragmatic way, and I would like, after the event, having a beer or two, to hear your opinion, whether you love it or hate it, or you would like to be one of the early adopters of this solution. Just hit me up. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Nikita. Does it work? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, of course, it's with ASTRATUM. So, but now I'd like to hand over, because this is not a one-man show. This is a partner event, and I'd like to hand over to Alex. No? No, actually, this is the agenda, so it would be you. But, yeah. Okay. But if you want, you want to go ahead? Yeah. So does it work? Does the mic work?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Alex. I'm working with Earlybird Venture Capital. We are kind of a conventional old school VC firm, still digging into this sector. We've done 2 deals so far, which some of you might know. That's BigChainB and Shapeshift, the most recent one. And yeah, internally I'm very happy to cover everything decentralized for a while now. I'm heavily engaged with the sector also for my for personal reasons and the passion. Yeah, I'm happy to use the next 10 minutes to talk a little bit about the perspective VC funds have on the whole sector. So that's basically the 3 topics I'd like to touch. The pain points of venture financing as we know it today. Followed by the rising impact of crypto tokens, especially on the financial side of the world. And then finally finish with a brief outlook. So, how many founders are in this room? Okay, that's a lot. I would say about 25% of all people. So then, most of you will be very familiar with the pain points startups are facing when raising a financial funding. And there are many pain points actually. So the first one is it takes a long time. It's about 6 months roadshow, more or less. You get a lot of no's, what can be very frustrating. And it's also for even more mature companies still a big pain point with regard to access to capital. Think of projects like matured companies such as Medium or SoundCloud, for example, which both have very strong communities, supporters, customers who would love to directly invest into those companies as a shareholder, but can't because they're excluded by law, basically. That's only accredited investors and institutional investors getting in this game. Another big problem is what I call the hit big or miss big approach. And that's very much related to very fundamental business model of venture capital. So imagine you're working with a VC firm and you're raising a fund of 100 million, early stage for example, and what happens then is that you allocate this money by investing into about 13 companies in seed stage and Series A rounds initially. And history has proven that out of those 30 companies you're investing into, about 25 won't bring you any significant returns because they become either write-offs or bring back your liquidation preference at 1, maybe 2x the money you invested, and that's not enough to make your investors, that's the LPs, limited partners, that's the guy giving money to us, to the venture capitalists, to make them happy. So what we need is companies which have the potential, at least in early stages, theoretically, to become very valuable, speaking about 300 million euros upwards, and the consequences that many very interesting projects and companies won't get VC money because they just don't have the potential to become big enough. That's in many cases the reason for me to say no to very strong teams, very cool products, visions, everything is right, timing, but just the sheer potential is there, and that's a big problem also on a global level and on a macroeconomic level. For LPs, it's a different thing because they compare venture financing to other asset classes, and there might also be more attractive alternatives. So what's the consequence of this business model, or of the hit big, miss big approach we've seen over the last decades? It's basically the creation of centralized networks. So as I said, VCs are looking for very special animals out there, and typically those companies with the potential to become very big show specific patterns, and that's something such as network login effects, hypergrowth mechanics, viralities, creation of significant new markets, or even shaping and creating whole new industries. Some of those we're very familiar with, and they bring a lot of value, a lot of benefits for many people, but they also come with certain downsides. These downsides are getting more and more obvious these days. Just doing some buzzwords here. So, algorithmic abuse is a huge topic. Censorship, filter bubbles. Think of the power Google or Facebook have, for example. Single points of failure. Think of our server infrastructure, Amazon Web Services, shutdowns, for example, mass surveillance. Comes to my mind, Apple phones and NSA backdoors, wealth creation for very few people. It's mainly the shareholders, maybe early employees of those companies. Maybe think of Silicon Valley, of Brexit, of Donald Trump. We have a huge gap of rich and poor, and this is also driven by these developments, lack of innovation. If I see a company attacking Facebook, which might have a very promising product, making the whole thing maybe 3x better, probably we won't do it just because these giants are too powerful, and so that's slowing down innovation. The good thing is many people in the room and a lot more out there are building solutions to address all these problems, and I can now only talk about a few of those. First thing I want to talk about is what's so special about crypto tokens. I'm very much surprised about this audience. Pretty cool that so many people raise their hands and actually hold different tokens. So I just assume everybody's familiar with how you could categorize them and what different kinds of tokens are out there. But generally speaking, they all share some characteristics they all have in common. And that's first liquidity. In the equity world, there practically aren't any secondary markets, right? If I'm holding shares of a company, I need to wait for the next financing round, and then if I'm very lucky, I could find somebody buying some from me, but it's not very liquid, whereas tokens can be traded right away. Access, that's also addressed. The equity world is very exclusive, also very local. So usually companies are raising money from VCs within their ecosystems, at least in early stages. That's different for tokens and ICOs. Everything is global from day one. And the growth mechanisms are very, very interesting. So what we've seen in the past are network effects, right? Facebook is only cool if your friends are hanging out there, otherwise it won't work. And in the token world, there's something even much more powerful, and that's basically kind of a 2.0 version of Facebook, where Facebook is not owned by any shareholders anymore, but by the users providing content. So the effect is that the more people are joining the networks, the better its usability gets, and also the more the underlying tokens appreciate in value. What is kind of a network effect on steroids. We've never seen something comparable. That's crazy, just crazy growth. We've seen one chart. There are much more. Execution of rights is a topic where we're still at the very infancy. I think there's much more room for improvement, to use smart contracts and bake in specific rules, make tokens more equitable, so to say. It's very experimental still. Of course, in the equity world, we need to go to courts, what takes time, etc. To get you right. Capital efficiency now, that's something where I see still a lot of problems in the ICO world. Many projects are raising way too much money in early phases. This could easily be prevented by using smart contracts or raising money in multiple steps, define whatever kind of milestones, etc. So that's that we need to improve. And of course, due diligence and regulations is a topic in the equity world. It's pretty much standardized. You definitely know which KPIs to look at and which red flags that might pop up, etc. And in crypto land, it's still a little Wild West, and many people, also Chris Burness, for example, I also did some research work and published it lately. It's still Wild West. Okay. So what's the impact now on the world of venture financing? Having understood the basic characteristics of those tokens, there are some people, some very strong thought leaders, such as Nada Ravikant, the founder of Angels and Coindesk, who very recently stated, quoting now, "You can basically throw the venture playbook out of the window. This, by referring to token sales and ICOs, completely destroys the existing venture business model, which is based on proprietary access early on. Now everybody has that." That's a pretty strong statement, and I have to admit, the first 5 seconds I was thinking about it, I was kind of agreeing, but reflecting more and more upon it, I don't see it this way necessarily. So I tried to get some data, given a short period of time. ICOs are outvaluing early stage VC funding volumes. Was a headline in an article which was published a month ago, and that's obviously true. The dark graphs you can see are reflecting the volume of ICO funding, which is significantly going up, especially in May and June this year. I think if we continue the momentum of the sector, the gap will get even bigger. That's very interesting and also kind of alarming for many VCs. But the most important thing, or the question we have, like what would be the impact on institutional investing, isn't answered by this slide, because it doesn't tell us where the money comes from. It's just saying you're using the mechanisms to raise money. And I couldn't get any reliable data, at least. All these analysis of token distributions after ICOs, etc. And there you can see some percentages, but you still don't know who exactly is behind those public keys. What I see though is that indeed institutional money is getting in the sector. So as Sven mentioned, there are these kind of crypto millionaires and whales, etc., coming from this ecosystem, specifically miners and exchanges, which are throwing a lot of money into the pot. But there are also more and more so-called crypto funds coming from different backgrounds. So it could be VC firms, for example, Untitled Ventures, Horowitz is mentioned here, which are directly investing in tokens, and there are others exclusively investing in tokens, such as Polychain Capital, etc. So they're gearing up, and when institutional money is getting into the sector, it's just about to happen. And then, of course, as a founder, you will always ask, okay, why would I actually need to work with these institutional people? Why shouldn't I just go with the retail investors? It might be easier. I get a better distribution, and I think there are reasons for this. Value propositions for founders could, on one hand, be that usually professional VC firms and also crypto funds will have deep expertise, network, and really understand what they're doing their homeworks. In some cases, the founders have run through kind of a due diligence process, and the funding is announced afterwards. This could help to be very strong signaling into the markets. ICO structuring is another topic. It's somehow related to equity financing rounds. There are, of course, differences, but I think the mechanics you're going to see are going to be baked into the token. And there will be parallels. And also long-term reliable partners. A lot of people, be it retail investors or also some of the institutional players, miners, whales, etc., are following pump and dump schemes. They get into the ICOs, make their money, get out their 5x, and dump it again, what isn't very sustainable, and entrepreneurs have an incentive to have long-term partners as well. Value prop on LPs, again, that's the guys giving money to venture capital and other funds. For them, of course, they could ask, hey, now it's open, everybody can do it, why don't I just directly invest? Why would I need a fund? And that's basically the same reasons as we see today. Domain expertise is missing, early access. I think this is a topic. Still, even though we have ICOs, we see a lot of pre-sales in this field, so a lot of funds are getting in early on. Or we see some kind of hybrid financing, rounds where the projects are first being backed by institutional investors, doing equity rounds, then build their products, and 2 to 3 years later actually go out with an ICO. We've seen that with IPOs, Filecoin, for example. Enigma is another one. They're like Civic, basic attention token, but they are much more. And I think this is going to continue. Okay, and yeah, regarding the outlook, I think we're still at the very beginning of this whole industry. Not software but tokens are in the world to bastardize the famous quote from Martin Wiesen. There's much more to come. We're seeing it now with different token models, especially in the PE world. There are much more assets to tokenize, such as stocks, real estate, fine arts, commodities, digital items, gaming, for example. And that's specifically interesting whenever you have physical goods which cannot be divided into many pieces, such as real estate, like flat, if you will. Smallest unit of account, you could now basically make liquid and also divide it into much more pieces. And yeah, that's how the graph span short could be continued over the next decades. There's many reports out there, and I picked the one from World Economic Forum predicting that we will go from an average market cap of about $100 billion 2017. Let's see how this year is going to end, to about 8 trillion billion market cap of tokenized assets in 2027, and that's 80x multiple of 80 from now on. So I think this is gonna grow still, and even though there might be corrections, the overall tendency is growth. Yeah, that's basically it. Some short key takeaways. Still many unknowns. I'm kind of daily changing my mind on certain topics. Right, so maybe if I need to have this talk in 2 weeks, I will tell completely different stories. Could happen. Maybe ventures hit this big approach or paradigm might shift in the future, just because of the liquidity. Venture will get further democratized, but only to certain degrees. I still think there will be room for institutional money getting in. And yeah, tokens are the future. I'm happy to discuss further on. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Alex. It's really interesting to have you here and showing us the point of view from the DC. I'm very glad that for tonight we have really experts from different angles looking and contributing to the ICO phenomenon. I like also to pick up the phrase of Alex and say what can be tokenized will be tokenized. Just to remind you some minor things, if somebody needs to wash the sand, you can do it here in the back. Also, I forgot to give you an indication about the program we saw this evening. So we had after now the Alexander. We will have now Nina from NWF and Anna from Cycles talking about the regulatory review and best practice. Then we have a short break where we can get some drinks and foods. And afterwards, we will have 2 projects presenting tonight. One is Windingtree. It's a tokenized answer to the fractions in the tourism industry, cross-currency and cross-system process. And then we have Ethfinex. And afterwards, we catch this up with a panel talk where we have also Martin from Gnosis joining. And so I give over to Nina and Anna.
Thank you, Sven. I want to use the opportunity, as always, when I speak, to highlight the existence of the Blockchain Bundesverband. Just a quick question. Is there anyone in the room who is not aware of the existence of the Blockchain Bundesverband yet? Still a couple of hands. Yeah, so we formed the Blockchain Bundesverband in June this year. Basically about 20 blockchain startups together with 3 universities and a couple of people involved. And the goal is to get blockchain mentioned in a positive way in the next coalition agreement after we voted all in September. Because the politicians we talked to so far, they all told us if you don't get it into the coalition agreement, the next 4 years nothing will change. So that was a one-time opportunity and we formed it very quickly and have now about 20 working groups up and running, which are open to everybody in the community. So everybody who would like to contribute is heartily invited to join. And this time, I actually got the list of our working groups, just to give you a flavor of what we are all looking into. So we've got an important working group on digital identity, and then we've got supply chain, legal services and legal tech, sharing and collaborative economy, smart cities. We've got Industry 4.0, connection to smart IoT devices. That's actually an interesting group. It's a little bit cross-industry. We've got voting infrastructure, tokens, crypto economy, ICOs. That group, I'm heading that group actually. Energy, finance, insurance, science and healthcare. I saw Sunke. Where are you? He is actually heading those 2 groups. We've got real estate. Achim is heading that working group. General legal framework, that group is taking care about questions surrounding closing contracts and general terms and conditions, disclosure requirements, things like that. And then we've got privacy and data protection, obviously another big issue. IP and licenses. We've got a corporate law group. Daniel? Daniel is there. Raise your hand. Right in the back. So he's actually heading the corporate group. Tax accounting, also very important. And then we've got a couple of groups which are not really working on identifying pain points, which we want to present to the politicians. But on pilot projects, that includes a collection of projects we can actually present to the public authorities to play around with blockchain solutions themselves. So whoever has like a project going on which could apply in that sector, get in touch. I think they are working currently on the car filing, Kfz-Zulassung, which they are looking out for a couple of communities which are willing to play the blockchain solution a couple of months alongside the traditional way of doing it. And then obviously they are looking into real estate, land register, things like that. And then we've got education, what is very much at the heart of one of our managing board members. So we're trying to partner up with universities. And we've got a group, ethics and governance, which is looking into the typical governance problems, especially with the public auctions. So if any of those topics are of interest for you, get in touch, and we gladly integrate you in our working groups. So that was it for the Bundesverband. And
yeah.
To give it a start with our presentation.
Hi, thank you, Nina, and thank you, Sven, for inviting me also over here. And I think if we are working as a community and we all want a community to come up, I think this kind of working groups is very important. And please participate, even if you can give maybe a few hours in a month, that's also useful. So please consider it as an option. Please join. Now coming to the question on ICOs and what are the legal issues and non-legal issues, whether you should be afraid or not. There are some differences between me and Nina also and other people also. What are the classification of tokens? Some say classification has to be done via your legal aspect, some say it's an economic aspect, because you have to come at a very atomic level on what are the classification grounds of an ICO tokens. So I have classify it under 3 categories. One is purely utility token. That can be both payment tokens and non-payment tokens. Then you have a non-utility token, which has no utility, but you just use it for maybe an asset back. Or there are hybrid tokens, which has both utility as well as an asset function. Now, when we can see the SEC order came and everything, it's a very interesting moment. When it just about to cross 1 billion market in the ICO field, the SEC came in. After SEC, all our regulators, they are best friends to each other, they started copying and pasting. It's a very good plagiarism model and they're using it properly. And there's also issues whether the SEC ruling is an executive order. First of all, it's not a court order, so it's not a law. It's just an executive order. And an executive, and it's also a report, it's not even an order, it's a report. And whether the report has covered all the legal aspects. What I personally also feel on certain aspects that they have talked about initially about investor security, and when later they came at the end of their report, they've lost the space of investor security and how to protect with this 1800s judgment and those kind of ruling without going into any jurisprudential aspect of what is investor security, who are the investors. Very few tokens are securities, and what about the other tokens, and what are those securities? Now coming to the question whether it's, so this is this market which I got the information from Autonomous. They did actually a very good job by analyzing it in a proper graphical way, and you can see it's like 1 billion when it's starting to reach, and they said, okay, now we need to count SEC topic. Now what are the issues? What are the issues that we should talk about the ICOs? Is it only about securities law or there is something else? Securities law is one part. If I'm considering about the European legal aspect, there are different regulations and there are other aspects which can be of useful for the European legal aspect, and I think Nina will talk about this in later slides. The other aspect which is very crucial is the consumer protection law. A lot of projects are promoting in such a way that they will solve the problem, the world problem in a second. Just give them money. And they're saying, okay, you give me money, I will give this benefits. If they do not do, if the projects go bankrupt, if they cannot do, they say, okay, then you lose your money, but in a very small terms and condition. I did an interesting research right now. I tried to find whether the ICOs, after the ICOs happen, they put the terms and conditions on their website. Most of the projects they do not. Why they are afraid then? Why they are not putting the terms and conditions on the website? If they are so much about decentralized, full of transparency, why there is a lack of transparency in this aspect? The second coming is the data protection law. A lot of projects are taking data in the pre-ICO stage and post-ICO stage both. What about the data? How they are controlling this data, the personal information and everything. The peer activities, how they are happening at this point of time. No one knows who are the PR agencies, how the PR agency collecting data, and this is a very crucial aspect where PR are representing, sometimes the tokens are not. The VAT law, Nina will come on this aspect. If it's a product and if you're selling a license, say, okay, this is the IP product, so there is a VAT obligation, how they're going to fulfill all those obligations. Creating an ICO vehicle in some weird jurisdiction doesn't help you. First of all, if you want to also survive in the market, and in order to replace the VC also, you have to have some credibility. Without credibility, without face, you are actually winning the market ecosystem. There are a lot of good projects, a lot of good coins, but there are also a lot of shitty tokens and shitty projects. And people knows it. And we have to weed those projects out, and it's a community initiative that should come into play. Now I would like to give to Nina to discuss further.
Yeah, and well, let's take a deeper look into what are tokens, what do they represent, and how do we lawyers actually try to enter into that topic. Now, first of all, there's currently no robust infrastructure where you could get like the ICO off the shelf. There's no developed markets, no developed documentation, no developed procedures so far yet. A lot of the ICOs we've seen so far had maybe not been truly legally structured. I completely understand that because it evolved from a different world, and sometimes in early stages also with the claim that this whole thing is outside of the legal environment because it's just code, but actually it isn't. So what we do is we always try to get to the content of the token as such. We are trying to look through this digital something and understand what the token actually represents. And the typical thing which is represented in case of Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrencies are tokens which come along with payments, which are used for payment means between different parties, and which allow actually to measure the value of the purchased good. So it makes the price comparable. There is now a current suggestion in the amendment for the fourth anti-money laundering directive on EU level. That's actually the first one within the EU, trying to bring a definition for what they call virtual currencies. And if you read that, digital representation of value that is neither issued by a central bank or a public authority, nor necessarily attached to a fiat currency, but is accepted by natural or legal persons as a means of payment and can be transferred, stored, or traded electronically, then I guess you get immediately that this is very broad, and everything that's within the blockchain community would be seen as cryptocurrency is clearly captured here. So that's not in place yet, but we expect, I don't know, maybe by the end of the year, that this European directive will come into place, and then we have a definition for the phenomenon of cryptocurrency. That's one sort. But a token can represent way more, and you mentioned already, you as well, a couple of those. Shares, financial instruments, licenses, vouchers. And for all the different types of assets that are represented by a token, different civil law and regulatory law regimes apply. So when we take them a look into the main categories that we've seen, we actually working on an analysis of ICOs within the tokens and ICO working group of the Bundesverband. And the most relevant categories from a legal perspective, that's not a typical classification you would see within the blockchain world, but from a legal perspective, the most relevant categories are cryptocurrencies, as just mentioned, then the equity tokens. And equity tokens we always understand as a token which come along with profit participation rights plus voting rights. So that comes in combination, and the voting rights go pretty far, especially like include things voting on the profit distribution, or voting on electing managing directors, things like that, then you're very close to an equity token. We in Germany then have this third category, profit participation token, which from many other jurisdictions will be simply another class of equity tokens. But we in Germany actually distinguish between those two. The profit participation tokens usually only come along with the profit participation right, but no, or at least no substantial voting rights. In the finance area, where I come from, we would call this MES. It's a mezzanine financing. It's not an equity financing. And then, completely different from those three, who are all kind of financial instruments, are the next two. Software tokens, or software license tokens, which we would call tokens who simply grant access to the use of a software or a software environment. It might be a platform that you're creating. And asset tokens, which represent either try to represent the title in the tangible asset, or at least the economic value of a tangible asset. So something you can actually grab, real estate, cars, diamonds, whatever. Those are clearly no securities from a German perspective. They are out of the financial regulatory regime, but with those tokens, you're right into the VAT problem. Because VAT, and that's the same as the regulatory regime, always applies, at least in Europe, where the user is located. So as Arnab already mentioned, it doesn't matter from where you start an ICO. It rather matters where you offer the token, right? The jurisdictions where you offer the token, that are the jurisdictions that are relevant for the regulatory view and at least with regard to VAT, also for the tax perspective. So what is a token as such, disregarding what it represents? We in Germany have like a fixed number of what we call absolute rights. And those are basically receivables and assets, like physical assets. And obviously the token is neither one, right? You don't have a right against a third party purely out of the token, and you cannot hold it in your hands. So the problem is that in Germany, this same token is not protected by law as an absolute right. We would call it rather sonstiger Gegenstand, other object, which exists and which is acknowledged by civil law. For example, the sales contract provisions apply accordingly to other objects, but it would be rather called exchange, not sale. Yes, it's comparable to something like know-how, right? Know-how is also one of those things. So we actually can deal with it from a legal perspective, and you can transfer it. It's merely on a contractual basis. There is no in-rent protection, right? That's one of the issues we wanted to address, because if that spreads, especially within consumers, we think the legislator should think about applying some kind of absolute protection to tokens as well. And then you've got actually to differ from the transfer of the electronic token, the transfer of the asset that is represented by that token, because there might be different rules applying to that. So actually, you can only really attach something to a token if there are no specific form requirements for transferring the represented asset, right? Because otherwise, the transfer, for example, real estate, you can only transfer by getting an entry into the land register. If you don't have that, you don't get the title to that property. So you can't simply transfer real estate by the transfer of a token. So I know that there are a couple of groups currently trying to make up their mind how to solve that issue. And that's simply due to the fact that in a lot of cases, statutory law mandates certain legal benefits only when certain requirements are met. That's not only the case for property, for land, but also, for example, for shares in limited liability companies, or for KGs, limited partnerships. Because all those entities require that you go either to the notary or you get an entry into the commercial register. So those things are also difficult to truly attach to a token. And then you always, if you have a real-world asset attached to the token, you always have to think about the possibility that this object might be acquired in good faith. Right? So if we're meeting on the street and saying, here's my microphone, do you want to buy my microphone? And you're saying, oh yeah, have 10 euro, and I hand it over to you, then you're protected because I hold the asset in my hands, and you can actually acquire it in good faith because I hand over to you the asset itself. And then it's gone, even though maybe the token is still mine, and I can sell the token later the day to somebody else. Those things are also to be kept in mind when you're thinking about attaching a real-world asset to a token. Same thing, for example, if the other way around, we're having a nice party later on here, I'm drinking a couple of beer, I'm completely drunk when I get home, and then I spread my tokens. From the civil law point of view, I can take them back the next morning, right? Because I was like out of my mind at that point in time. In that case, the token might also not represent what it claims to stand for. Aside of those issues, we've got another one, which is a huge one, actually. That is the multi-jurisdictional challenge. There is no such thing as an overarching, unified, legal, global system. Unfortunately, jurisdictions are broken down to countries. We have like 192 countries around the world. We have multiple bilingual, bilateral or multilateral legal agreements. Just think about it, the EU alone, what massive number of regulatory rules we have here. So, unfortunately, the legal world is splintered in lots of fractions. And it's not possible, really not possible, to observe any and all requirements we have around the globe. So anyone who wants to go global needs to start with core jurisdictions, try to figure out how things work there, and then slowly expand. That's what any kind of international company does when it's going to offer its services or products abroad. There's nobody who's able to actually start on a global basis right away. And I really like that sentence from Stephen Paley, who said, distributed presence means distributed legal liability and distributed compliance, and I added tax obligations. Businesses with international operations are well acquainted with this. That's unfortunately so true, and there's no way to get around this. So be mindful of the multi-jurisdictional challenge. Check where you actually offer your token. It's even more important than checking where you're located. Carefully choose the governing law where possible. In principle, in civil law area, you can choose the law that applies to your contracts. But there's always some mandatory law in any jurisdiction where you offer the tokens which will overrule your contract, like for example consumer protection laws, data protection laws. Obviously the whole regulatory area is nothing that you can opt out by choosing another jurisdiction. Yeah, regulation. Regulators start to take action. We see more and more regulators voicing their opinion, their maybe first slight opinion about the token world. In Germany, BaFin already said a while ago that they would see cryptocurrencies to be so-called units of account, Rechnungseinheiten, and that is actually a financial instrument pursuant to our banking laws. That actually differs from more or less the rest of the European Union, interestingly enough. And it basically means that the commercial trade requires a license from the BaFin. I already mentioned the upcoming amendment of the fourth EU anti-money laundering directive with its new and first definition of virtual currency. And what it will actually bring into the field is a full KYC obligation for gatekeepers. And gatekeepers are wallet providers and crypto exchanges. So that will be coming soon in the EU. Then the EU discussed already a while ago, I think it was earlier this year, whether they should restrict the allowed volume for payments with cryptocurrencies. Most of you will know that cash payments in euro are already restricted and limited. And there were discussions going on whether they should extend that to cryptocurrencies as well. Seems a little bit difficult, to be honest, because how do they want to control it? So that seemed to me a rather theoretical approach, but we'll see what they do. Then we saw the SEC report on the DAO, basically saying that those are securities and that they watched it closely. They even mentioned the names of people involved, what I found really surprising. And the cryptocurrency exchanges in the US seem to start to react on that now, because qualifying that as security means that they either need to delist those tokens from their exchanges, or they need proper license, what not all of them currently have. Then the MAS Singapore followed SEC rather more or less immediately, and also clarified that they are going to regulate tokens. And I am aware that BaFin also is working on a paper. They're not saying when they are ready to publish it, but they are working on further announcements, so we'll maybe see that sooner or later this year.
Thanks. So I would just add to Nina's list, Canada also came up with a paper recently on ICOs and how the investors should be careful. FINMA from Switzerland is planning maybe this week or in 2 or 3 weeks we will see something. Now I'm coming from a legal academic side, so she is a lawyer, she follows strictly. But if you understand a very basic principle, there are 3 questions of regulation. What to regulate, who should regulate, and how to regulate. The first and the last question, and what and how, these are often discussed. These are discussed in every legal text, every legal jurisprudence. But who should regulate? This is a very long debate in jurisprudence, in legal jurisprudence. And a concept of regulation, whether it should be decentered and centered regulation, that comes into play. And I think when we're talking about decentralized market and decentralized economy, why not a decentralized regulation structure? The concept of nirvana fallacy, have you ever heard about this idea of nirvana fallacy? Anybody? Okay. So nirvana in Buddhist concept means you have achieved like the ultimate stage of enlightenment. In legal aspect, there is nothing that is, even if you have done everything legally correct, as per your lawyer, they cannot guarantee this is absolutely correct. Because at the end of it, the court says, okay, this may not be. So the nirvana fallacy works like, even if it's not perfect, it should be workable. How we should make this ICO market workable? Now that's a question, because this market has grown, and this will stay, this will not grow. It will evolve, so how we can contribute in the evolution. I think the entire idea of this meetup was how it can influence the corporate structuring and corporate financing. And I think this is a very interesting discussion of self-regulation. The self-regulation doesn't mean what we regulate or individual self-regulation, but it's a collective self-regulation. Collective means a community as such, how it can regulate. And the understanding of a decentered regulation means the regulation is not a privy of a state, that is the nation state or the government should not be the only regulatory agency, but the civil societies, the participants, the businesses as such must also have a say. And I think this say needs to be channeled through associations like Bundesverband and other associations. They should come together and create forum in a hub and spoke model, not in a very understanding like you should not make a clear distinction, okay, I'm US, I'm an association from Russia, I'm an association from Germany, but a hub and spoke model where they both all collaborate, and then you move to some agencies like IOSCO, which is an international organization for SECs, and ask them, hey guys, look, we have something, please give us an opportunity to place before you, and let's discuss on a mutual collaborative way whether it can be done or not. And this should come on a very transparent model. Now, how we can propose this kind of things can work. So the community should come up, but I can understand by a code of conduct, like what should be the ICO's best practice, or what should be the ICO projects do, what the investor should see, what the projects must implement, and that the community must bring out those things. Then you create those ICO rating agencies which are already there and ask them to implement those. Create dialogue, a proper transparency dialogue with the Securities Commission or your government, and then you can achieve a decentered regulation because you have already told them what you have done and there is a full transparency. There may be a lot of issues, it sounds very complicated, it is complicated actually, and that's why all the civil society and all this society of blockchain should come together on this aspect. I've just given some examples like engineers, lawyers, all these agencies, they have actually created their own self-regulation body and they are being monitored by the self-regulation body. Why not this blockchain actually can also come up with some kind of self-regulation body which also regulates the best practice code. There are two fixes, one that can be done on a short-term basis, one that can be done on a long-term basis. Long-term basis is to create best practice standard. So you have understanding how it works, you have the regulators on board, and you are not afraid. And also this, you can weed out the shitty comments. For the short-term fix, immediately the project proponents, if I have seen, like there are certain measures that project proponents of the ICO projects must put into place. First, have a proper legal advice. Without creating a legal structure, please do not do an ICO and mislead the people. There are a lot of ICOs they are doing without having any legal structure. They do not tell where the money goes, they just focus on Facebook and other PR activities. It should not be done. Not merely a white paper of 5 pages. At least something, some workable model should be there. Even if you don't have an MVP, at least have some MCP. Wallet security, who is in charge, whether there is security auditing, those kind of things must be taken into consideration. Whether there is independent auditor, like where the funds, how the funds will be utilized, whether they have a business plan, all these things must come up and see how detailed the information is in the white paper, their utilization model, their project model and everything. The business report of for the contributors. This is one key important aspect. I think if the lawyers are here and this is an auditing requirement also, you give in a fiscal year there is a report, an auditing report. Why not we also put some kind of business report, like how you have burnt the money and put it on your website. Be transparent to the projects and to your contributors. For the contributors, there are a lot of things that need to be checked into. First, they have a hard cap or not. If there is a hard cap on capital that shows that they did their research, they know how much they want. They do not want to go to the moon. Then you also have, there is a code and open source or not, whether it has been done, if it's not, whether there is security auditing, who has done the security auditing. This kind of questions must be asked. Business roadmap and technical roadmap, very important thing. Disclosure of team members, a very crucial point. A lot of projects doesn't show who are the real beneficiaries of the project. And community must ask who are the real beneficiaries. There's another trend which I have also noticed these days is they show partners of the projects. Sometimes after 1 week or after the ICO, the name of the partners disappear from the website. So try to see whether they have linked the partners from their website to the main partners, and also whether they are actually going publicly and asking, okay, these are the partners, and please cross-verify and try to ask them question, do you have an MOU with them? If not, how you can say you are a partner? Those kind of things. Now the responsibility in decentralized regulation, I have classified under 3. There are main 3 actors. First and foremost is an exchange, and we have one of the biggest exchanges sitting over here. And the exchange guys have the most important, I think, risk also, because they are the reason that ICO also flourished, because they provided the secondary market and the hope for the secondary market. So when they should list the tokens, they should be very careful whether the tokens are securities or not. If they are, what are the legal requirements they have taken? Whether the project that came to get listed, whether they have a legal structure or not, those things. The project owners must first create a legal entity who should be liability of the tokens and the funds, and also be transparent to the community at large. The rating agencies, these are the agencies that need to develop. There are already some rating agencies, but I do not know that they follow a universal method or not. But they should come under certain criteria. The first and foremost criteria of the rating is the transparency. How transparent the projects are, how the informations are there, and what are the investors' protection or the contributors' protection, so to say. The novelty of the project, the fund management team, or who manage and what is the management plan, the business plan and technical plan, and also a legal structure behind the token issuing company, and who will be the ultimate beneficiary. Because number of these days, the token issuing company is some foundation, then the beneficiary is some corporation. Who is ultimately liable? This kind of things should be written very clearly in the white paper. I think Nina can now forward with the presentation.
Yeah, I think we're summing up. And maybe there was one thing I was thinking about, Alex, when you spoke. You said the VC funds are more, long-term oriented investors. And I read an interesting post, and that also comes back to what you're saying, best practices. Actually, for an ICO to prevent these pump and dump schemes, the tokens should be locked for a certain period after the ICO. And personally, I also think, if you're participating in a pre-ICO with a huge discount, your lock-in period should be even longer. But that's my personal view, and that would be, I think, an easy fix to a couple of those schemes we're currently seeing. Yeah, but To round it up, legally relevant are basically everything that you state to sell your ICO. That certainly includes a white paper. And let me say this, a lot of white papers are a little bit formatted as if they were prospectuses, and I think you shouldn't do that. Either you write a proper prospectus and get the approval of the regulatory authorities, or don't make your document look like a prospectus. That's one thing. And especially if you're selling like software license tokens, there is no reason at all to make something that looks like a prospectus. So I really would recommend doing a proper analysis and then setting up documents that actually contain what they should contain. Then you've got typically a purchase subscription agreement and the terms and conditions, those are sometimes combined. And independent of the form, those documents are legally relevant, right? Even if it's just in code. Determine content of legal relationship with user, yeah, remember substance over form. Really think about what you're offering and understand the legal environment in which you're playing your game. Not only the environment where you're located, but as we mentioned already a couple of times, where you're going to offer your ICO. And then the rest is the typical things. Obviously, if you get in conflict, especially with the regulatory laws, you're threatened by fines, even prison, and obviously we will see sooner or later claims for damages by investors coming up. And then if you're actually going to prepare an ICO, I would always recommend, no matter what type of token you issue, that you discuss it with the BaFin beforehand. You can actually get in touch with them via their online contact formula, and they will get back to you if you do it properly, typically within a week or two, give you a call to discuss it. And then they will ask you to hand in the drafts of the contracts that you're going to offer to the public, and only following that, they will maybe give you like a written statement. But the call typically gives you already a good feeling where you're at. And maybe some further tips, really work out your request to the BaFin properly so that they can understand the legal structure behind it. Don't copy white papers, right? They have seen so many, they will recognize that you just copied it. So don't do that, they get so bored with these things. And don't hide away anything from the regulators, doesn't make any sense. You know, they will follow you, they will look what you're actually telling on social media and compare it to that, what you discussed with them. So it doesn't make any sense to try to hide anything you intend to, tell the wider public. And that are my closing remarks. Thank you very much.
So, are there any questions? Or if there are any questions, then raise them. Yeah, we have some here. Up front. Yeah. Just wait, because we would like to hear it also in the back. By the way, also recording.
Yeah, this is a question for the lawyers. You said multiple times about you have to consider where you are offering your ICO. It's not about where you are formed. So let's say I form in Switzerland, and I have a website, and people go there from I don't know where. They read the documentation and they take part in the ICO. How am I supposed to know? Let's say I get 192 countries, I get 192 people that sign up, and I must then spend all my ICO money to adhere to the legal regulations in 192 countries. How does that work?
So Nina, what do you say?
It's actually very simple. You're only supposed to make your offer where you can really offer what you offer, right? It's your responsibility to check where you are allowed to offer your tokens. That's not the responsibility of the people around the globe to simply check whether they could actually legally buy into that. So that's simply the way it is. Wherever you want to offer a service or a good, you as a seller need to check if you comply with the local laws. And unfortunately, yes, in the digital times, you can simply close the website and offer it globally. But that doesn't help, right? Nevertheless, even though the technology enables you to do a global offering, you nevertheless are requested to take a look into that. And for the US specifically, the recommendation I hear from the US colleagues is really to block the IP addresses, to set in your general terms and conditions the questions to confirm that you're not a US citizen, to tick the box, to really make sure that you're not offering that or you're not supposed to offer it.
Then what percentage of ICOs, current and also past, do you think have been compliant?
Not very many. No, we're just seeing right now, and I think there are a lot of professionals out of the legal tax and audit fields trying to work out proper structures right now. And we're seeing more and more teams who really want to be compliant and are taking time and effort to actually sort those issues out. But you will nevertheless see tons more ICOs which simply do not care.
Okay. Oh, another question? Dave?
Yeah. I have a question. If you personally think that the free market should adapt to laws, or if the law should adapt to the free market?
I like that question. Actually, honestly, if I would have, when I decided to study law, if I would have thought about the fact that I would, bind myself to a single jurisdiction, I would not have done it. Right? So, that conclusion came too late for me. So, the jurisdictions, the multiple jurisdictions across the globe are create a lot of challenges. But I would not go so far that I would say a global law would be perfect, because then you would not have any choice, right? Currently, you at least have the choice between different approaches. You can choose where you settle down. And some law regimes might not be something that I would actually choose to be governed by. So maybe a completely unified global law is also a dangerous thing. But I completely agree that we currently certainly have too many of those.
Maybe that specific issue you mentioned just now, do you see that change in the future with the developments in the blockchain space? So like smart contracts are basically like self-executing law. So there's people that are saying, we're in a transition from a lawyer capitalism to a programmer capitalism. Do you have any comments on that, or what do you think?
Law is like language, right? It's not a mathematical science. Hence, we deal with a lot of gray areas. And that's always difficult for a code to get along with gray areas. So yes, we can surely make law more effective by using smart contracts, but smart contracts will never ever be capable of actually solving all problems. There will always be gray areas which you cannot foresee in a smart contract.
Can I just add on something? Like we lawyers, like Evelina, she has a bar license. When she advises, you are meant to presume that her advice is perfect. Does the coders have it? Do you have an agency that says this coder can be reliable? No. First, you should ask for your own agency. Like that's I think the coder should have an own self-regulating agency that says, okay, if you go to this coder, that coder smart contract can be reliable and downline hack will not happen. Okay. Another thing that comes is a smart contract. It's a script language, right? It just modifies. Something else will modify in 5 years. You cannot say an age-old tradition or a profession changes completely. What is like how it can be adopted in economy? I think that's a different question. Another question on free market economy which he asked, are we really staying in a free market right now? I don't think so. This is not a free market which we have with all the WTO things going on. So if like the nation states still exist, so we have to work out how we work with the nation states and how the municipality when we come, because now municipalities or the states or the cities, they are becoming powerful. How we collaborate with nation state and cities, that's the important question. And this is the question of free market also. And it's a very theoretical question, sorry. Okay, any questions?
What about insider trading? I mean, how are ICO investors actually protected by any law calling insider trading? I mean, I get it that it's valuable that we talk about like regulation of ICOs, but nevertheless, once you have an ICO that's completely compliant and people still mess around with like massive insider trading, how does that fall in place from your opinion?
Depends, I would say. If the one who's messing around is the one selling the token, I could see some claims by investors being cheated coming up. It certainly depends. The problem currently for Germany is that our definition of securities deviates from the EU definition. That makes it quite difficult because the German securities always require a paper to be issued. So none of what we would call a Wertpapier can be tokenized currently in Germany, right? The EU definition is wider. And interestingly enough, we will have 2018 another EU prospectus directive coming up which will apply directly in all the member states. And that will introduce also to Germany that wider securities definition. And then, we can also see this insider trading rules which apply to securities being applied directly.
Okay, so that is fine. I don't own any tokens yet. I come from an old school financial environment, and I'm looking at all a little bit more real world objectives. All I've heard is a lot of valid questions I would have asked too. One thing I really don't understand is we're talking a lot about how we're gonna want to self-regulate, and it's all beautiful. I just don't think it's viable because human nature is just not done that way. We all need, somebody always wants to be in control. I mean, the current CFTC in the US just allowed the first Bitcoin swap. It's a financial contract that is untradable. Tradable to anyone actually who has access to that exchange. And it's not a tokenized exchange, it's an exchange where all sorts of assets are traded. Number one. So the US is already trying to position itself. Second thing is regulation. From a financial point of view, each country is always trying to get some advantage by being more tax-friendly, lighter regulated, and so on. Now with Brexit, if I would be the UK, and I would look at what you've just talked about, the EU and Germany, I will be the #1 country as UK to be super friendly to anybody who wants to set up a company to do ICOs. So how's that going to work? How's the EU going to mitigate that? I mean, or I'm going tomorrow to Cyprus and just gonna set up a company so I can do exactly what the gentleman over there said, sell to 190 countries without being worried about it. Otherwise, the ICO market is never going to grow. So these are the sort of thoughts that
I will just answer the first question. The first question is self-regulation is not working, right? I'll give you an example of, do you know how AML and KYC regime in 1988 developed?
No, but you're going to tell me.
It was the banks that collaborated and they thought, okay, we need to come up with something. There are a lot of self-regulation mechanisms that actually works. The question is, who has to enforce the self-regulation? That you can use a state mechanism, but you can create the regulation. I'm talking about a decentralized regulation. The top-down approach means you are a part of the regulation also, and you put the enforcement power or function to the state. That actually mitigates a lot of issues, and also they gives you a say in the issuance jurisdiction and other issues. Regarding the second question, okay, you want to stay in, say for example, a small island, say for example Bhutan. I'll give you an example. There's no crypto valley. Have anybody heard about Bhutan?
Yeah.
Okay. So Bhutan believes in global happiness index, no GDP. You do a bank over there properly in Bhutan, no one will attack you because India and China, they are standing over there right now, trying to protect each other's territory. So you will be protected properly. But you have to issue, you have to convert the fiat, you have to pay the salary to the employees. The employees will not stay in Island of Man or Bhutan. You have to bring them somewhere and they can trace you. They can lock your bank account, they can restrict your passport. What you can do on that? They have power. If they're done with Snowden and others, they can do, they have the power. The regulators are not stupid. And I would like to give to Nina now.
Yeah. Maybe one thing, don't shoot the messenger, right? So we didn't invent that whole thing here. We're just telling you how it currently works. So I think we're the wrong ones to actually argue for it. Indeed, quite the opposite. What we're doing in the Bundesverband is currently to collect all these pain points and then present them and try to get at least those changed, which only depend upon the different technique that's used here, right? And that the law maybe did not foresee when it was invented 100 years ago. So yes, it's not perfect, and Germany is actually not pretty good in making itself with those regards as a good, competitive environment. So unfortunately, when there is EU law, we try to implement it even a little bit more stricter than necessary. And that's what we're seeing in this regulatory area a lot. And that's obviously what we don't like and what we're also trying to bring up to say, hey, we've got a huge crypto scene here in Berlin. A lot of startups coming here, even founders from abroad come to Berlin to found here their companies because they find the software engineers who like to live here. So why, don't we allow those people to actually do their business legally here in Germany? That's absolutely stupid. And we should at least try to create a level playing field for business in Germany compared to other EU countries.
Maybe just one comment from people who are actually doing ICOs, not myself, but I've been talking to quite a few, and they tell me that actually Germany is the best country to do that and has currently the least practical regulatory limitations. What's your take on that? Compared to Switzerland, for example?
Well, I would say at least in Germany we have a pretty clear view on what's required. So for specific financial instruments, you simply need a prospectus. So what? Write a prospectus, go to the BaFin, let it approve, and then you can legally offer whatever you want to offer. It's sometimes even easier than going for the other route, the software license token, where you are out of all the regulatory implications, because tax actually is even more difficult. And by the way, it's not true that you're clean and safe when you simply go abroad to Gibraltar, to I don't know where. Because if you're offering your tokens, those kinds of tokens, in the EU, then the VAT is owed in those countries where the users are, right? And that really makes it difficult. It doesn't matter where you sit. And that's one of those things we're now trying to solve, because that's really, it's even more difficult and more expensive, by the way, to solve that issue than to comply with regulatory things. And so we're actually working in, I think we will see the first prospectuses sometime soon.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to make a break. I just have a feeling that we have a lot of questions. And we have also the opportunity of talking to Anna and Nina. I'm with you. The legal aspect of ICO is very important. But there are much more other aspects of it too. Proposition, technology, economic model, marketing campaign, and much more. And so I would propose now to make the first. Please, if you have bottles or glasses or so, take them with you so that we don't have any issues here. We make a break, 15-20 minutes. We have drinks here.
Just one thing to add. Aside from those beautiful T-shirts of ASTRATUM, one would wear tonight, there is a box for your business cards and a list if you don't have any, if you want to stay in touch with the organizers of this event and want to be on any circulation email list or anything.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Small break.
Thank you. You are the best of the audience tonight because you are sitting on your chair and also expressing your interest that you move on with our program. And despite enjoying networking, so we have now Bobby in the background, please. We have now Christian in the background, please. Dave, I think Dave, you can already come up. Dave and Alyssa, is your turn? Yeah, so, okay, but then you can already maybe. Okay, so because you want to move on. You want to move on, so I'd like to give you an output, so. So thank you for the excitement I shared with you. So we have now two projects being presented by their founders and team members. One is Windingtree. Windingtree is addressing the broken or the expensive tourism markets with cross-currency, cross-systems, border expensive processes, and by creating an open source travel distribution platform. It's a tokenized model, and a DAO. A DAO, for who doesn't know it, is a decentralized autonomous organization. Basically, company been run on blockchain with smart contracts. Afterwards, we will have Ethfinex, which is an information and exchange platform for Ethereum-based trading and discussion, which is a project from Ethfinex. Augusto, you stay here because
yes.
You're going to be next.
Yes, I'm next. Okay.
Excellent. And afterwards, we will have a nice panel with Martin Kappelmann from Gnosis, Nina Sita, you already heard tonight, Alexander, you already heard tonight, and Will Arbon from Ethfinex. So, obviously you need access to a presentation, and Alex, you need to give us access to your PC. And obviously you need Big Dave?
No.
You need on an all?
Yes.
Okay. So I hand over. Right?
It's on.
Oh, it's on?
What? It's on?
Yeah. No, yeah, but that's not me.
Give it a try.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so what's yours then?
Lift token, lift generation. Lift token.
Yes, it's a browser. This is that's also. Yeah. This is the main. Can you stand in front of the projector, please?
Yes.
Because we give privacy so that completely.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect, but there Super. Don't move. No. You can see the latest pictures on your mom.
That's not too much privacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to prove it?
Yes, I'm going to. Hello. Hello everybody. I'm Augusto from Windingtree. I'm one of the founders of Windingtree. What is Windingtree? Windingtree is a project that will aim to decentralize the travel industry. Yes. Right now, the travel industry is very outdated and has a lot of the common centralized problems that we know. So our motto is the travel industry without intermediaries. So mainly we are going to decentralize the travel industry. But that is not what I'm going to talk about today. Today I'm going to talk about the Lift token generation event. Yes, that's how we call it. It would be an SEO. For us, it's a generation event that will start once we deploy the smart contracts. Yes. So all these ideas came thanks to 2-3 weeks that we were discussing on Prague. I arrived to Prague a month ago, and I showed my teammates, and we started discussing each other what our TGE should have, and we base our ideas on that paper that is there, that the great Vitalik Buterin share it on the community. So we wanted to solve the problem of, for example, every token generation event or ICO should have certainty of valuation. What is that? What is the certainty of valuation? It's that, okay, I'm sure that I'm going to send this amount of Ether, or I'm going to invest this amount of money, and I'm going to have this token at this certain price. Yes, that is certainty of valuation. Have certainty of participation. So is that I will be able to participate in the crowd sale. I mean, if I want to invest, I want to join the carousel, I shouldn't have to send a ridiculous high fee to just join the carousel. For example, I want to invest only $100 and I have to use a fee of $10 just to my transaction be mine on one block once the ICO starts. No, I mean, that shouldn't happen. And with the more participation in the platform, the more decentralization. So the more decentralized the platform is, the more valuable it is for us, yes? Another thing, have a validation mechanism. That is something that, I don't know, but we haven't seen before. What ICO is a validation mechanism where you can say, okay, these guys are doing good. I trust in their project, I trust in their vision, I trust they are reaching these milestones that they say that they were going to reach. And if I don't trust on them, where can I get my money back? Or at least a part of the money, because we all know investing on ICOs isn't it has a risk, right? So I can earn money, my token price can go up or it can decrease. If it decreases, I'm going to lose money. So investing on the ICO has a risk. The higher the risk will be, the more time I'm going to be trusting on the platform. For that, we are going to have a special side on the platform that we are going to talk about the market validation mechanism. Be as decentralized as possible, where the more participation on the token generation event, the more decentralized the token is going to be. Be as efficient as possible. So this is, if I want to invest $100, I shouldn't need to use a $10 transaction fee to invest that amount of money. So if you ensure participation and you are being decentralized, the more efficient that your ICO is going to be, and the less money that the investor is going to need to spend to make his investment.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Stay.
Leaf token generation event. It's going to start on the 1st of November, and the token distribution is pretty simple. We are going to distribute the 75% of the tokens on public sales. The 20% of the tokens are going to be distributed to founders, advisors, future team members. All of these tokens are going to be distributed on a vesting schedule, so we are not going to receive that tokens instantly once the carousel ends. You can imagine if the carousel ends with, for example, 10 million tokens, these guys are going to receive 2 million tokens instantly. The token supply will be higher at an instant in just 1 minute. So we don't want that. We are going to have a vesting schedule for that 20% of the token. And as far as the 5% for the Windingtree Foundation, it is going to be able after the market validation mechanism. And it's going to have a vesting schedule. The carousel will be uncapped at the fixed price. Why? I mean, why, guys? Do you want to reach that ridiculous amount of money of $200 million and spend it right away? No. If you have an uncapped carousel, you ensure that everyone is going to be able to participate. Yes? If we are going to have an uncapped carousel for 2 weeks, everyone that sends Ether to our carousel contract is going to have tokens. And that's what we want. The more people that have Leaf tokens, the more decentralized it is, the more valuable is the platform. $5 million is the minimum cap, and we have a cap, but it's a soft cap. It's a soft cap of $10 million that once the carousel finish, if the carousel raised more than $10 million, the remaining funds are going to go to the market valuation mechanism that we are going to talk about it on the next slide. And the $10 million are going to go to the Windingtree Foundation that is going to take care of this money as long as the market validation mechanism is right.
Okay.
That is the minimum amount of funds that we need to ensure that the project is going to be running and the market validation mechanism is running. So what is this market validation mechanism? It has some properties. For example, it's going to buy tokens from market. If you are an investor, you don't trust in the project anymore, you can send the tokens back to the MVM and you're going to receive some ether back. The higher time that you wait to send your tokens, the less money that you're going to receive. The tokens are going to burst once it's received. That's good because if the tokens are burned, it means that the total supply will be lower and the price will be higher. The price is calculated by the total supply of the tokens and the amount of ether that the market validation mechanism has. What does it mean? For example, if we have 100 tokens and 1,000 ethers on the market maker, the price per token is going to be 10 ether. So, yeah, it's going to be one, right? It's really high. But what doesn't matter is that the Windingtree Foundation is going to be taking funds from the market valuation. The Windingtree Foundation will be taking funds from the market valuation mechanism every month. Yes, till it reaches the 2 or 4 years period. At that time, the market validation mechanism will be depleted, and we are going to start the schedule of the 5% of the tokens that will go to the Windingtree Foundation. So that's how we fix all the problems that we wanted to solve for our TGE. That is participation. It's going to be decentralized as much as we can. We are going to have a validation mechanism that there is no ICO that have ever implemented anything like this. They just take the money and you trust that they are going to use that money on how much they say on their web paper, based on promises. I mean, blockchain is trust, but if you can avoid promises and you can program it, that is why we have these smart contracts, so we can have as less promises as possible. This is our goal, to automate the trust as much as we can, and to provide validation for the platform for the investors. I think this was all. I have to say 3 things.
Oh yes.
One is thanks for your time, for allowing us presenting our project here. Another thing, visit our website. We have Slack. We have a white paper open for comments. Another thing, if you are a blockchain developer, we are looking for blockchain developers to show our project. If you don't have time at least, you can meet me at the end of the talk and we can talk about our ideas.
Good, so just stay a moment. So
Yes.
thank you, Augustus. So we are also looking for blockchain developers.
I say first. Maybe everybody can raise their hand who's looking for them.
We are actually also looking for additional other people. We have different roles.
We pay double as much as
Our tokens are bigger. So, thanks for the insight into your proposition and the design of your ICO. Just to recall, what's the concept of Windingtree?
What's the concept?
What is Windingtree?
What is Windingtree? Yes. Well, Windingtree is a decentralized platform. Windingtree is a decentralized platform for the travel ecosystem. Open source, maintained by the community. So I think that's pretty much what is Windingtree.
Okay. And who may use it and how?
Who may use it and how? Our focus, we are aiming to be a B2B solution.
Okay.
The Leaf token is going to be able to be used as payments, and among other things, we are designing our token to be more smart. We are going to have, for example, transfer methods that are going to allow you to transfer value and also make static calls on smart contracts. We hope that bringing this open source platform on the travel ecosystem will also start a lot of innovation on the industry, because, for example, all the inventory that is going to be on the platform is going to be available for everyone. So if you are a travel startup right now, you have to call the big guys and ask for their permission to access their inventory, which also takes a lot of time and money, and Windingtree is going to be instant and free.
Okay, thank you. And so, but it's also interesting not only for the small guys, as you said, but also for the big guys, right? I mean, you are also talking with some big ones?
Yes. Yes, we are talking with airlines, big hotel chains, big guys in the travel ecosystem. But well, one thing that we already know, that the travel industry always has some. It takes his time to move with the technology and to be up to date. In fact, it's pretty odd how it is right now. It takes a lot of time to integrate with their technologies. They started, for example, using JSON APIs like 5 years ago. So that is I think that is an example of how the travel ecosystem is right now in the technical point of view. We are here to decentralize and disrupt it.
Okay, and it's a DAO.
DAO?
A DAO?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Will be?
But it will be, of course.
Okay.
Of course. About the DAO, yes, it's going to be a DAO. We don't have the answer to the question, how are we going to distribute the votes? Our idea is that it's going to be distributed depending on how much do you use the platform, how much do you bring to the platform. Well, that's the idea. It's going to be DAO, it's going to be maintained by DAO, but the DAO implementation is on the roadmap and it's going to be changed.
Cool. And so, okay, now we got it. You're interested to get some investors investing in, also blockchain developers.
Yes, yes.
Me too. So, yeah, we need to greet them somewhere, you know. What about if I'm in the tourism business and I would be interested in somehow benefiting from it? I'd just be interested in Windingtree now. What could be the approach to it, or what's the next step?
The next step is to enter our website, join our Slack, contact us. We have two of the founders are taking care of talking with with anyone who wants to join the platform. It's a very early stage. We know what we want to do. It's difficult, so we aren't promising anything that is going to happen from one day to another. It's going to take some time, but we are on the right way, and the sooner you talk to us, the better, because you are going to be soon in the platform.
Okay, cool. So thanks a lot. This was great having you presenting. You're anyhow around. You have announced that you're basically collecting funds for developing that open source project. And so the audience who is interested may contact them afterwards, Augusto or Dave. And I'd say thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, any questions? Okay, here we have some. So, yeah.
So my question was, you mentioned it's a B2B business model, right?
Yes.
So my question is, why would a public person be mind for this model? How does the user benefit from owning your tokens?
Sorry, can you repeat?
So if it's a B2B business model, then how are the users involved? Is it just a speculatory aspect to the whole investment into the coin, or what's the benefit?
That's a tricky one.
Yes, it's a tricky one. What is your gain on investing on this token when we are proposing a solution for B2B? Well, first of all, it's not only B2B, that is what we are going to aim for. You are going to be able to book hotels and flights using your LIF tokens. If you are tech savvy, you know pretty much about blockchain, you are going to need that to use the LIF token at the very beginning. But then, of course, we are going to propose public web apps and places where you are going to be able to use LIF token as an end user and contact directly hotels, airlines, anyone. But right now, the best place to start implementing all these solutions, we think that is B2B. That is where we have to remove the middleman there.
Sorry, I don't understand. What do you do? There are these solutions. Yes.
What?
Still unclear. Yeah. What you do? Business. What is the product?
Yeah, it's okay. Well, right now the travel industry is very oligopolistic. So, for example, the 90% of the data and the bookings are being processed by 3-4 companies. These companies have very high fees. For example, we can talk about 10 and 50%. And they decide how much is going to be the fee, whatever they want. And they bring no innovation at all to the travel industry. The travel industry is a very big one. It's a $7 trillion industry. Well, I wasn't the one who came with the idea. The idea came from Maxim Gilmailov, that is one of the founders of our Roomstorms, that has a private startup, and he suffers all the costs of integration and time that can bring to a simple startup that want to work on the travel industry. So mostly that we are going to decentralize a very oligopolistic industry, very much of it.
Maybe I can pick up that question. If you look at the travel industry, if you, for example, are booking a trip to Argentina through a German travel site, which is owned by an American operator, then you have multi-currencies being involved. You pay in euro, while the hotel you're staying in Argentina is receiving it in pesos.
Pesos, Argentinos.
Pesos. And the payment system in the background is probably built in dollar. And if you make your travel, you're not only booking the hotel, but you're booking a plane, which is maybe from another country, also built in another currency. And you're also booking insurance, which is again from another country. So you have multi-currency processes, which are expensive because they have to be exchanged. That's what decentralized systems are about, and saving money. And you have also multi-stakeholders. And whenever you make a change in that process, then it's in the background a hack. And the operational costs behind that multi-state party process in the background involving multiple currencies is extremely expensive, and we are not aware of it because we have no choice. In the end, you have 3 or 4 big companies on Ecopol running the tourism, But these expenses are paid by the people either booking the trips or the hotels basically providing the services. And that's, so far as I understand, not the problem, but the point you want to improve basically with one.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We had a yeah.
What's your MVP going to look like? So, where do you actually start?
The MVP? Yes.
Yeah.
Good question. Well, right now we have a smart contracts written for hotels and airline solutions. Our MVP will be focused on hotels only. Yes, and of course another thing that we didn't have there is that we consider that we need to have an MVP before the DGE. I think that's something very important, so the investor can see on what they are investing and what they are putting their money. But yes, it's going to be only for hotels. We plan to start integration with airlines that is much more complex than next year.
Okay, then I would suggest that we just move on. You can raise a question afterwards, I think, so because we have a panel, and before we have the panel, we have Ethfinex. So, Augusto, thanks a lot for coming, and good luck for your projects. Maybe last question, really last one.
Yes.
What is Windingtree about? Where does the name come from?
They already asked me this question today. The thing is that I don't know, because I didn't came with the name. It was Maxim. So maybe next time if we have Maxim there, we can ask him.
Okay.
Or we can answer that on Twitter, maybe.
Yes, please.
Because it's the second time that he came with that question. I don't know where that's. I just like it. I just like it.
Okay. Good. So we will ask Maxim.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I got today asked several times what does ASTRATUM does. So we are blockchain venture studio. What does ASTRATUM means? I just pick it up. We have a story as well. That's Astratus from Cygnus Astratus, which is the black swan, which is the symbol of disruptive moments which are basically shaping the economy. And stratum, which is Latin for layer, which is a concept being used in technology where you build systems based on layers. And so, not talking too much, here we have another guest, right?
Hi.
So hi.
Yes, I'm Will Harborn from Ethfinex and Ethfinex, and I'll be presenting our new token exchange. So,
excellent.
Essentially, Ethfinex is one of the largest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchanges, and we're launching a new platform called Ethfinex. And so this is specifically now targeting tokens and many of the tokens that are being created from ICOs. And the reason that's going to be a separate product is that we really see these as very distinct products compared to cryptocurrencies themselves. So before I go into what Ethfinex is, I'm going to recap a bit of the history of Ethfinex, which is quite interesting and has really shaped what we are creating now. So crypto exchanges at the moment are essentially centralized, which is obviously strange in an industry all about decentralization. And the reason for that is that a lot of what we do, when it comes down to it, is managing KYC and compliance when interacting with the traditional financial industry and governments. So essentially we provide a bridge to fiat where users can bring in their money and buy different cryptocurrencies, which is user-friendly. It means we can offer a very high speed and liquid service, but it has several drawbacks in that it doesn't necessarily fit with the model of what blockchain has the potential to achieve. And that's led to centralized risk, which we've seen many, many times since the inception of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchanges. So Ethfinex, we were hacked last August, and $72 million worth of Bitcoin was stolen. So that was shocking at the time that Ethfinex was the largest Bitcoin exchange, but also that it was trading 60% of the volume at the time, so it was seen that if anywhere was safe, it should have been Ethfinex. Yet this was able to happen. So no centralized exchange was essentially safe. And what happened after this was, a week later we relaunched the platform, having dealt with the security breach, which was, I won't go into, but was related to a partner of Ethfinex. And what happened was that every user's balance was reduced by 36% of the funds that they had on the platform. So that was basically socializing the losses of what was taken. And in return, they were given a debt token, essentially, where for each dollar of value which was removed from their accounts, they had $1 of debt token. So that was a novel concept. The alternative would have been bankruptcy, and that's what was expected. That's what had happened in the past from cryptocurrency hacks. So this debt token was tradable and could be sold on the market on Ethfinex. And the day after it was issued, the market rate was around 20% of its dollar value. So that was therefore, you could equate that to a 20% chance that we would ever repay those funds to our users. So considering that this has never happened before, that was actually a reasonable chance. And over the next few months, slowly certain percentages of these tokens were redeemed from our operating profits. And there was also the opportunity for the holders of these tokens to trade them for equity in Ethfinex itself or its parent company. And reaching April of this year, finally the last of those tokens were redeemed and removed from the market, with users given $1 dollar value of that token. And up to that point, the value of the token had really grown from about 20% up to about 95% at the time of the full redemption. So the really interesting learning point here was that as an alternative to bankruptcy, firstly this had worked, but secondly that tokens have a huge potential beyond just pure equity, in that by having a tradable token like this, users had an incentive to remain loyal to the platform even given the security hack, and actually brought back their volume very quickly to continue trading on the platform despite the security breach. And we then saw the platform able to return to profitability and therefore able to repay those debt tokens. So that was hugely influential in our future thinking around what tokens really are and what their value is, beyond just for fundraising and as a potential alternative to issuing shares in the company. So going forward, Ethfinex was really born in the aftermath of this period, seeing also the innovation that was happening with Ethereum and projects raising money on Ethereum. And particularly what was really clear was that the true value of these tokens was very strongly related to the communities around the projects. And that was similar in a way to cryptocurrencies, but also had a unique element in that particularly where we really saw value was whenever a network platform was issuing a token, because what you really did was made your platform sticky and really essentially amplified the power of that network. So in Ethfinex, that's played a key part, and the trading platform is coupled with a discussion platform where we can almost crowdsource information from community members and experts to really clear out which tokens and which projects are valuable and which are just trying to raise money or don't have a strong idea and concept behind them. The second part of Ethfinex is around decentralized exchange. So again, coming from the lessons from the security breach, a lot more funds were stolen than were in active use on the platform at the time. So essentially, users had left their funds with us because they thought they were safe, or because it was too much effort to remove them. And that's something which adds no value to us and basically creates greater risk in the ecosystem. So in the long run, decentralized exchange and making use of the power of Ethereum and other blockchains has to be the way forward for exchange. And recognizing that, but at the same time recognizing that it's not a mature point for particularly our more sophisticated users who trade at very high frequencies. It means that we're approaching it from a hybrid model where we will allow decentralized exchanges to plug into our exchange, but will not yet fully be decentralized. The third aspect will be, again, to have our own token, which will never be sold in an ICO, but will be earned by and given for free to users of our platform, particularly large traders, as a reward for their use of the platform, and then to incentivize them to continue to use it, and in the long run to decentralize the ownership of the platform, so that the users of it will be the biggest customers and the owners So, coming back to really, for us, why ICOs are important and why tokens are important. It's particularly about communities. And there are these three corners which, to us, are completely interrelated in token and ICOs in a way that isn't true on the traditional stock market. And therefore, token sales need to be really coupled to the trading, but also to their communities. And so what we hope to achieve here is, rather than anyone being able to claim anything in this space where there is a lot of money quickly available to invest, to be able to incentivize people who are most knowledgeable to do research and contribute it so that traders and investors can use that information and have it available to them to make the best decisions about which tokens are valuable. And in the long run, we want our platform to be generated from that user content and from user research, so that even decisions about what ends up getting traded is based on how large a community they have, how well it's rated by the best experts who contribute the best research about it. So these are, again, the same concepts, and coming now back to hybrid decentralized exchange. This is a more long-term project, but it's clear that we need to find a way to not just sit as other exchanges do above blockchain, but to really integrate it into the service we provide. And therefore, we need to work with other projects in the Ethereum ecosystem to essentially, what we hope to do is offer an experimentation zone so that new decentralized exchange projects who are building on Ethereum can trade with our users and our liquidity pool and quickly experiment and improve. And in the long run, we can then adopt that technology ourselves. So finally, our next token, which is essentially a loyalty point. So the biggest users of the exchange never pay for these tokens, but the more you trade, the more these tokens you earn. And you can then use those at the end of each 28-day period, if you wish, to redeem them for a reward from the total fees generated on the platform, or trade them to other members of the incentivization scheme. So this is a way, essentially, of, rather than just raising money, of making sure that the people who own our tokens are our biggest customers. And therefore, those who have the biggest incentive in seeing this become the best platform will necessarily also be the ones who have the biggest stake in it. So this is something which I think is very important for all ICOs and all tokens, is that it's not really a fun. It doesn't have value unless the people who own your tokens are also your users, because that's really where this separates from traditional funding methods, in that you augment your initial user base by making sure that those who have invested and who care about your project are also those who will benefit from its success. Any questions? Very welcome.
A small question. This platform is about people contributing, a lot of user content driven. You have experts posting and people can view and basically use it to make decisions. Who is setting the criteria, who's considered to be good enough and knowledgeable enough to actually post and be worth considering?
Yeah, so essentially, in the long run, this needs to be as well user-rated. So the way that it should work best is that if your rating of a particular ICO or prediction of how well it's going to fare once it goes into development was accurate, you're going to earn reputation as a good content contributor. And people will therefore, your opinion will therefore carry more weight when it comes to rating these projects, and that will in turn then be shown to potential investors or traders when they're making decisions about these projects. And it's not possible for us to do all of that due diligence. It needs to be crowdsourced.
So this is like something that obviously is going to grow with the amount of people posting and users are involved. So to me it sounds, it's not like it's something where I want to be the first to try it, because like the probability of error is pretty high. But if I have 1 million people posting, and out of those 1 million I now have established, I don't know, a group of 100 that is having a strong track record, then I guess that platform becomes substantial, and then obviously a lot more people are going to draw to that.
Absolutely, yes. And I think that's, again, that's where blockchain has the most potential, is in network effect platforms. And I guess it's the same problem with...
Is Ethfinex going to start effectively developing the database themselves before they actually make it public?
So we'll have a closed beta period, and we'll also make an attempt to draw in some well-known good contributors to kickstart it, yes.
So how can you enter the closed beta period if you're, for example, interested in contributing to the project, like looking at the ICOs? Some of them don't have GitHub repos, and some of them have a lot of vaporware, but you know that it's for sure. So how do you contribute to the beta platform?
You mean how do we know that projects are good if they don't have those sorts of...
So is it just like an upvote, or how do you know for sure?
I mean, so essentially, so for example, the initial token trade on the platform will essentially be a combination of, I mean, it's very clear for people who are well embedded in the industry to say which projects are good or not. It's much harder for the average investor to evaluate a project and say whether or not there's anything behind it, whether there's real technology. And just to some extent, at the beginning of this, we are going to need to ourselves manage and sort of not regulate it, but to be able to at least moderate it. And over the long term, we want to turn it over to users as it matures.
So one way to earn nectar is to do the contribution thing. And is there an opportunity as a market maker? Are you looking for those also? Like to also...
Sorry, so the main way to earn these tokens is by acting as a market maker on trading. There will be additional methods of earning it for potential, contributions. But the real value of this token is for market makers.
About the governance. I read that you're going to have a governance system on the platform, or there I read the word governance. There's going to be some kind of governance there. If I have a lot of nectar tokens, I'm going to make a proposal to make it, some new cryptocurrency listed or exchange on the platform, something like that.
Yes, so in concept, we want it to be governed by users. In reality, we haven't seen any successful decentralized governance work. And the initial way we're going to handle that is that large users or coalitions of users will be able to have a real seat in person on an advisory board. So that they actually will come and discuss and advise on how this platform, as large stakeholders, should be run. In the long run, we hope that other projects with active governance in the Ethereum space will come up with better solutions. But that's not our specialty. It's not something we're going to research or but
Can you share any details about the technical implementation of the decentralized exchange? So will it be on Ethereum, fully on-chain, hybrid approach, like 0x, orders off-chain, settlement on-chain, or on sidechain, like whatever needs to go or something like that?
Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of options that we are working with, or in the long run, it seems unlikely that it will be on-chain or on the Ethereum main chain, and that's impossible to say for now. In the short term, the solution we're going for will be hybrid, so that we'll have a very similar model to Ethfinex, which will allow anyone remotely to build up, or is already possible using the APIs, to build up a view of our WebSocket API and see it view our order books. From that, a remote user could, for example, select an order on the order book, sign it using the 0x protocol or any other decentralized protocol which gains traction, and send it back to a specific API on the Ethfinex or Ethfinex website. We are then able to match that and settle it via blockchain, for example, but in a lazy fashion where we still have control of the order book. So it allows us to put settlement first of all onto blockchain on the Ethereum network. But in the long run, those sorts of solutions aren't particularly scalable, and we're looking at approaches which will probably involve well, working with teams like, well, working with other projects who are investigating that sort of thing.
So you mentioned having order books and also Bitfinex, or using your own Bitfinex's order book for all the exchange. Isn't an order book anything but decentralized using your own, the same thing?
So yeah, so I mean, you're saying that order books are by definition not are centralized?
Yeah. Order books are centralized, and using your own order books to fulfill decentralized exchange orders we make per ticker is not really decentralized anyway.
Yeah, so I guess there's different aspects of what decentralized exchange means. I guess trustless exchange is our goal in a way, in that the biggest problem for us right now is that we have huge custody of funds. That's the first thing that we need to, that's the first risk and weakness point which we must get rid of. So that's something which this does solve. Order books, there are other ways to decentralize order books potentially. So already we use or Bitfinex has developed a proprietary technology which is now open source called Cadamelia, called Grenache, which basically allows you to use the technology behind BitTorrent almost, which can decentralize your order book and spread it over many different nodes so that it's very able to withstand DDoS attack and some of the other challenges of centralization without having to be run on blockchain. And there are ways of decentralizing which don't involve the costs and inefficiencies of blockchain.
What's that called? Sorry?
Grenache.
Grenache. How do you spell that?
Grenache.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'd like to jump in, if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because I see there are many questions. I have seen you've been interested in going on with the discussion. Still, we have, it's late, we are running out of time, like every time we have an event. But it's when you have an audience which is participating that happens, and I think that's a great thing. So I'd like to move on to the next agenda point, which is a panel, where you're also part of it. And so if there are no more questions left, then we would move to that panel. A short panel, yes? And I would invite basically the panelists to take a seat here. So you have seen them, most of them today. And maybe we can pick up some, but actually I wanted to thank you also for your presentation, right? For Ethfinex. And Martin, great to see you, yeah, take a seat. We had, who else was it, Alex, or was it Matt Brown? Presenting, Alex, was your name? Yeah. So, you have a suggestion? I thought I'm two. So you, no? Okay, so maybe Alex. So we have already talked a lot today, and it's already late, so we might keep it short. I'd say maybe we can pick up some of the questions of the audience with you. I have also a question. And so I'd like especially, I mean, I know you guys, I listen to you, but not to Martin who came up. And actually, Martin, you are based in Berlin. You're very well in the Ethereum and also consensus environment. And you made one of the outstanding ICOs in the last month. Yeah, there are many criteria to that, but it would be interesting to learn maybe more about how you dealt with that challenge of that jurisdiction, you know, what's the token, where to locate your company, how to deal with it. So, that's fine, yeah?
Sure. Sure, yeah. So, well, I co-founded Gnosis. Gnosis is a bridge market platform based on Ethereum. So with bridge markets, you can do all kinds of interesting things, forecast all kinds of things.
can do things like sports betting, but you can also do very interesting parts about information aggregation. I think a few times here there was this, okay, we need to gather information around ICOs, and we want to do predictions, and I always think, yeah, prediction markets. So they already directly provide an incentive to deliver the right information, and don't necessarily need reputation systems because you can just trust someone because someone's actually putting money where the mouse is. Anyways, that's roughly gnosis. Now the question, yeah, we did an ICO or token sale. That's how we call it. Yeah. Anyways, I mean it's back in the days, ICO was not a word to use. Now everyone is using it, so whatever. So we did an ICO in April. Yeah, what was the question again? So how we prepared it, right?
Yeah.
So a few details. Yeah. First of all, it took quite a while. So I think we started preparing, or Gnosis is roughly 2.5 years old. We started looking into the option to do token sale in, well, roughly a year before the actual ICO. I think we spent at least 8 months figuring out at least a fraction of the legal questions. I'm not sure we figured out all, but I still don't think anyone figured out all, but we tried our very best to well, make sure everything we did was fine. Well, a few points. So the company itself is based in Gibraltar. Gibraltar is one of the many countries that are actively trying to get blockchain related companies to be based there. They are working on a regulatory framework currently. It's a DLT framework, somewhat like the BIT license in New York, but much more business friendly. But it's not like well, I mean, I guess there's a scale of jurisdictions, and there are those jurisdictions where you can just do whatever. Gibraltar is not such a jurisdiction, so they had already done this model with gaming and gambling, and they were one of the first countries that came up with a somewhat decent framework around regulation around gaming and gambling. And now the reality is that kind of the most reputable gaming companies are based there, and if you don't get a license there, then you go to wherever. And now they're a little bit trying to do the same model with blockchain companies.
Okay.
What is it for?
Yeah. I'd like to open up if someone of the audience has a question. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Markus from eCharge. We are working hardly on ICO. We are coming from the e-charge industry, so we're building 50,000 e-charge points where you can charge your car. And we want to have the payment on the blockchain technology, and we are hardly working on ICO. But there are some huge people who are trying to talk to me how to do it best, to set up a foundation, to set a real Aktiengesellschaft, or how to find real people that are teaching me right and not to do a lot of mistakes.
Oh, I think you're at the right place. Let's pick up the question. Question was, I think, for you, Martin.
Yeah.
Tax haven.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are many aspects. So we, when we decided for our jurisdiction, well, of course, Switzerland was the country at that time most project used. So this kind of foundation model, and there is this one law firm, basically MME, that did kind of a ton of those token sales. At that time, we decided against them, or against that route, for two reasons. First of all, it didn't felt, or it felt always a bit, well, not, I wouldn't say, kind of saying, oh, it's a donation for the foundation, or that sometimes it felt a little bit strange. We are happy with Gibraltar, but I'm sure there are many other routes or companies. I don't kind of.
Yeah. The question was how to find the best people that can help us to do a really good ICO. Not only where to place it, and you need marketing, you need to find the crowd and so on. So it's hard to find the people that will really help you. And there are so many, if I talk to 20 people, then they all say, okay, we do it, the ICO, we organize it for you, and exclusively and so on, but maybe that's not.
Maybe I pick it up. So indeed, if you look tonight, the topic is ICO, and the people here being present are involved in one or another way. And we are also to some extent working together on that topic, because you have until today not one place to go, because you have many experts having to work with it. And ICO is not only a financial process, it's not only, yes, it's a community, exactly, so it's a social innovation blockchains.
So you start with the breaking?
I think you first have to dig into the strategy. Actually, what's about your proposition, and to positioning rights amongst existing concepts on the market, but also upcoming and anticipated propositions. And then you basically need to carve out your potential position, and then maybe you way forward. And this may define the token design you have.
Okay.
And this may then define your jurisdiction you have, and how you then try to reach the goals with new tools. You know, we have now new tools. I mean, we all know this. I mean, I can ask you what are the basic communication aspects you need to consider when you have an ICO. Alex, you know it too?
Yeah, communication.
That's so?
Yeah. Yeah, it has a lot of elements. So for myself, when I'm investing in projects for this website, is one source, and you have all the Slack communities, Telegram communities, you have all the big blogs like Bitcoin magazine or CoinDesk or whatever that is. So there are many channels, Twitter, influences. You could make a long list of channels where you would actually need to reach out to get the attention of the crypto world.
Exactly.
It's pretty complex, and it's rolling, so there's more coming every day.
So this is just an example. We have also, with the introduction of the ICO as a new financing tool, we have basically new marketing tools coming up, which are different than the previous one. You have also, you know, 20 years ago you had an IPO roadshow. Today you have an ICO roadshow. And you don't have anymore the closed clubs like you had in fireside chats in Switzerland, but you have meetups. And you have a global community. So this is why, for example, we reach out to Korea. We translate our events also in Russian, and I know you guys do it also in Spanish. So you need to tap into the global crypto community, which is global. And this is just one aspect, you know. And
So I did a good start today, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I see there's another question.
Alex, are you trying to convince you at least to allow investing into ICOs? And do you see this as a route for like early stage investors or VCs?
Yeah. Both very good questions. Of course, we're wrapping our heads around this. Unfortunately, I'm not in a partner role, so I don't decide anything on my own. I have some influence. Yeah, it's mainly the partners who decide on such strategic topics. So we're discussing it very actively as of now. And this will become pretty relevant soon, I guess. Mainly latest, in case any of the existing portfolio companies, I mentioned two, there might be others from more conventional markets also considering to tokenize parts of their products. And I'm pretty sure that this will definitely pop up within the actual portfolio. And as I mentioned before, I think this could be a path to go actually to get equity financing in the very early days, build your product, build up the strategy around it, design everything, and then do your token sale later on. And it seems to be kind of the best practice for now. We've seen that with all the very big ICOs as well. These guys don't just directly raise money through ICOs before having built everything. And the market will mature on this topic, and I'm very confident to see more venture financing players entering this field. There are many challenges though. It's not only about picking the right assets and investing. It's also about the infrastructure, for example, right? So what do you do with the coins? Do you store it all on a ledger, on a key, put it in a bank vault? How do you liquidate? And when do you liquidate? How do you pay off your LPs? So there's a lot of structural questions we still can't answer, and there will be experiments around this. But I'm very confident that more and more VCs and other funds are going in this direction. What was the second part of the question?
Well, the second part was mostly like, how do you stick to the defined agenda of the fund? But you kind of said it. It's not banked out.
In the end, it's basically the relation between the VC funds and their limited partners, the investors behind, kind of, and their specific agreements, the LPAs, limited partner agreements, and there you have some clauses in which kind of assets you're allowed to invest.
Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, you can have decisions overruling such clauses. That's possible. I think it's much more tricky on the issuer side than on the buyer side, I would say.
Okay, here we have another question.
Question for Will. So I've listened to a few podcasts from, I guess, like founders of exchanges, and they're ramping up, obviously, because the volume, like, I guess, like, the last 5-6 months, gone through the roof. Like,
so I think on Bitfinex in the last 3 months, we've had 50% of every support ticket we've had over the last, since 2013. So it's, I mean, there's no way you can grow a support team that.
Exactly. So my question is, so I heard that from Jesse Carl Kraken and from the Shapeshift guy, Eric Voorhees. And you just said that you guys are also experiencing that kind of growth at the moment. Are you guys worried about, like, trying to grow the team to sustain, like, what's going on now? And then, let's say in 6 months' time, we have a bit of a crack, or probably a decent-sized crack, and then the volume goes away because people are not really crypto people. They're just, hey, it's going up 100% this week. I want to buy some. And then what does your business model look like if the volume goes away?
Yeah, there's certainly an aspect of that, and I think that's partly why a lot of the exchanges are reticent to, grow the teams to unsustainable levels. The solution has to be, to some extent, part-time, and the problem is that bringing on team members is a very long process. So, if we begin taking someone on now, it may take months before they actually join the team, for security reasons, but also because there's a big learning curve. So it's something so people management for these kind of businesses is incredibly difficult. I think it has to be taking a long-term view of thinking that even if there is a crash, we expect this industry to continue growing, and it's worth investing in people now with the expectation of that being ready for the next exponential lift up.
Cool. Okay, so I just hear that we are tired. So then I just would suggest, if that's fine with you, come to an end. And I would like to thank you all for coming and making this. Thank you all for coming, for your interest in that amazing new world, and so hope to see you soon. And whenever you have a question related to that topic, you have here people you can contact, address, and know where to find. So, long story, or no, what is it? Short story on words, whatever. Here you can get something to drink and to eat, and see you next time.